And we will begin. Okay. Welcome to everyone for our information meeting for 620 Bobolink. I'll introduce our panelists in just a moment, but I wanted to welcome all of the residents from the community who have taken the time to join us tonight. I know you've probably all got busy schedules, so we appreciate your interest in this topic and that you've taken the time to join us today. Just looking at our participant list on Zoom, and I can see a few familiar names. Welcome to John Curry from the Community Voice. And I see Tanya Hine here from the Stittsville Village Association. So welcome to you and everyone else. I also see some familiar names from people who have already shared questions and comments with us about this application. So tonight really is an opportunity for residents to learn more about the application from the developer and also to ask any questions and get any clarity. I know on the city's website, there's a website called DevApps that has all of the development application and supporting reports, but that can often be a really dense set of materials. So these information sessions really help to bring that information to you in a more accessible way. So we are broadcasting on Zoom. We're also on Facebook streaming there, and we're recording this so that we can upload it to YouTube as an archive as well. So you'll be able to check that going back. With me from my team is Jordan Moffat, and Jordan will be helping with our Q&A and moderation tonight. So if you have a question or a comment, if you're on Zoom, you can use the Q&A panel. You can also raise your hand if you'd like to ask your question. You can kind of come on like a almost like a talk show radio type of thing, and you can ask your question rather than typing it in. So use that raise hand or the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we'll make sure we get all the questions answered. If you're on Facebook, you can use the comments section on Facebook and just type in your comment, and Jordan will be watching for those questions and comments, and we'll be sharing those over the course of the presentation this evening. So on screen, you're seeing a number of people. You are seeing from the city's planning department, Colette Gorney. Good evening, Colette. Colette is a planner of record for this file. And Jeff Wren, who is a co-op student who's with us this evening as well with the city. And then representing the applicant, we have Nadia DeSanti from WSP and Sam Getcheni. If I pronounced that, Sam, I should have asked before we started with that. It's close, okay. And I'm not sure if Alex Alm's going to be joining as well from Richcraft, but maybe in progress. I'll check the panelists to make sure he hasn't logged in or having issues getting in. But all right, I think we're ready to get going. I'm going to turn things over first of all to Colette, just to put this application in the overall planning and development context and explain a little bit about how the city's planning process works. So Colette, over to you. Oh, you're on mute, Colette.
Oh, sorry, just sharing my screen. Can everyone see my screen? Good to go?
Yep, it looks good.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Colette Gorney. I'm the file lead for this application. So if you have any comments or questions, feel free to contact me directly through DevApps. So just to go over the application for 620 Bobolink Ridge. So just to put it in context, so site plan control, it's a tool used by the city just to make sure that land is being developed appropriately and it's functional and minimizes impacts on surrounding properties. And this process, City Council has delegated the authority to approve site plans to staff. So as part of the process, we'll be working with the applicant to address any comments we have, any concerns that come up from public circulation and technical circulations. And once we're satisfied that all comments and issues have been addressed, we would proceed with approval, unless, the councilor wishes to withdraw that delegated authority. And so, yeah, just like a quick overview diagram of the process. So we're at the community information session, and this is typically done before the end of the initial circulation period, which in this case ends on August 26th. So please submit any comments you have by that date through DevApps. So we've deemed the applications complete, meaning that the applicant has submitted everything that we asked them to submit to complete a fulsome review, and we've given a heads up and circulated it to technical agencies and the community, as well as the ward councilor, Councilor Gower. And so where we're at right now is staff and everyone is just reviewing it, and we're waiting for all the comments to come in. And then once all the comments come in, we'll prepare a consolidated list of them and provide them to the applicant. And then the expectation is the applicant will prepare a resubmission, address all the comments, and then we'll go back and forth until staff are satisfied that all the comments have been addressed. And at that point, we will move forward with the delegated authority report and the preparation of the site plan agreement after approval. There's also an alternative route, but this is up to Councillor Gower, of course, if he wishes to withdraw delegated authority, and then it would proceed through planning committee and council. So, yep, and then after that, we'll also notify everyone of the decision. So this is the site. It's 620 Bobolink Ridge, and it's located in the Fernbank community. It's just south of Bobolink, east of Embankment, and west of Robert Grant. And so kind of the policy context, this site is designated general urban area. And this designation it permits a full range of housing types and different uses. It's pretty permissive in that way. And then the zoning for the site is 4RZ, which is the fourth density residential zone, subzone Z. And this zoning does permit what the applicant is proposing, which is a planned unit development consisting of stacked dwellings. And yeah, that's pretty much the policy context. I'll just pass it back over to Councillor Gower.
Okay, thank you very much, Colette. Next, I'll invite Nadia DeSante to give us an overview of what's being proposed here.
Thank you, Councillor Gower. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nadia, and I'm a registered professional planner and practice lead here in our Ottawa office of WSP, and joined by my colleague Samantha. And so we will share the presentation, and our client Alexander Araki from Richcraft will be joining momentarily. So we have a very short maximum 10-minute presentation, and Colette has given much of the site location community context. We'll just kind of go provide a little bit more information on that and the policy overview, and then Samantha will present the development proposal, and then I'll wrap up our presentation with the project timeline. So today the site is vacant. There is a temporary construction trailer that would be removed by prior to site development. And just a couple of comments here. So the site is outlined in yellow on your screen, and I just wanted to advise of some adjacent land uses. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry about that. So the site is located within the Claridge Richcraft Tamarack Westwood subdivision, which consists primarily of detached dwellings, many of which are under construction. And there is a mix of residential and institutional uses that are planned around the site. So we have to the south of the site and south of Cope Drive, there's a future high school, and further to the west of the site, there is a French Catholic elementary school proposed in that location. And there is a residential development planned further north of Bobolink Ridge. And then to the east of Robert Grant Avenue, they are the existing low-rise apartment buildings. So definitely some additional uses to complete and continue the expansion of the Fernbank community in that area. Colette already presented the site and its official plan designation, so we can move on to that. Next slide.
Okay.
And just And just wanted to note the Fernbank Community Design Plan, and the site is designated as medium density residential, and it's identified by that star. I also want to take a note that our client Alexander from Richcraft has joined us, so he will be here to hear comments and help answer questions. And I'll now turn it over to Samantha.
Perfect. So yeah, just to expand upon the location of the site within the Fernbank Community Design Plan. So the site is designated as medium density residential by the CDP, which permits a range of housing types, including stacked dwellings, which, as Colette mentioned, is the dwelling type proposed on the site. Land uses in the medium density residential designation are required to be should have access to arterial or collector roads, be in proximity to community facilities, and serve as transition between non-residential and residential uses. The proposed development, which I'll talk about further later in this presentation, does meet these requirements since it is located off of Robert Grant, and it is in proximity to the future school sites to the west and the south, as well as it serves as providing transition from the residential uses to the west to Robert Grant Avenue. The proposed development also meets the density targets set by the Fernbank CDP for the medium density designation. The medium density designation has a density target of 50 to 60 dwelling units per hectare, and the proposed development would have a density of 53 dwelling units per hectare. So moving on, Colette's already talked about the zoning bylaw, so I won't explain further on that, but as you can see, once again, the site, its location and its zoning. So now I'm going to talk about what is proposed if the development. So development consists of seven blocks of stacked townhouses, each containing 12 units each. The townhouses would be 4 stories in height. A total of 130 parking spaces would be provided through a surface parking lot, and that would consist of 113 resident parking spaces and 17 visitor parking spaces. This meets the full requirement set by the zoning bylaw. And within this parking, there is 2 barrier-free parking spaces being provided, as well as 3 electrical vehicle parking spaces. In addition to that, 50 indoor bicycle parking spaces will be provided by a central storage/utilities building located at the center of the site, as well as bicycle parking will be provided throughout the site and within the landscaped area. The proposed development would provide a total of 1,526 meters of outdoor amenity space spread across 3 separate amenity areas within the site, and this includes large area in the center, if that's 460 meters in area, and that would contain a badminton court as well as a play structure. Site access is proposed off of 2 accesses off of Embankment Street, and a private road is proposed within the development to serve the residents. And I want to note that the units would be rental in nature and would be operated by a property management firm. So moving on, this is a architectural rendering. This is showing one of the blocks on the site, one of the townhouse blocks. So as you can see, a mix of materials are proposed with windows, siding, and brick. And these would add to the overall look and aesthetic of the Fernbank community. Moving on, so this is the landscape plan that was submitted as part of the site plan control application. I want to show this because you can see the amount of green space that's being provided within the site. So as you can see, the townhouse blocks are proposed throughout the site, but they're mainly oriented towards Robert Grant Avenue, so as to maximize the distance between the townhouse blocks and the detached dwelling units to the west. You can also see the amenity areas I was talking about with my cursor. They're throughout the site, and this one in the center, that's where the badminton court, play structure, and utilities building would be located. And you can see the street and parking lot also provide further distance and separation between the development and the detached dwellings. Okay.
Thanks, Samantha. So our site plan control application was submitted last month And the deadline for public comments is next Thursday, which is August 26th. And we're happy to hear your comments tonight. And then through the rest of our summer to winter, can't believe I'm saying the W word, winter 2022, we're hoping to have the final review of the site plan, approval, and decision. So looking at a couple more months in the process. And with that, that concludes our presentation. So I want to again thank you for being here tonight, and I'll turn it back to Councillor Gower. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, Nadia. So we're now into the Q&A part of the evening. So once again, if you have a question, if you're on Zoom, you can enter it in the Q&A panel, or if you'd like to ask your question live to the panelists, you can raise your hand in Zoom. And if you're watching on Facebook, you can add a comment to Facebook. I have a couple of questions that were sent to us before the webinar started by residents, but Jordan, are there any questions from people who are tuned in that we can start with?
Yeah, we have 2 questions so far.
Okay.
So I'll start. Oh no, we have 3. Look at that. Actually, it turns out the third question is the same as the first one. So I'll just start with that one. There's also a comment attached. They're wondering why the vehicular access will be from embankment. And the comment attached to is that they're worried that it may create more traffic on that street. And it would be dangerous for people to be on that street. So can you explain the reason for embankment being the vehicular access?
And maybe why could there be a vehicle access off of Cope or Bobolink off to either side of the site?
Colette, I'm not sure if you wanted to maybe provide the city's perspective on just transportation in that area, and then perhaps Alexander, if you wanted me to say anything, or if you wanted to augment that. But I think maybe Colette, I'll ask if you wanted to sort of speak from the city's department first.
So from the city's perspective, and of course this is being reviewed by transportation staff as part of the review of the application, but there are limits on the ability to put accesses close to intersections just for kind of traffic flow reasons and things like that. And it's not ideal to place a large number of accesses on higher order roads like arterial roads just for traffic flow as well. But it's something we are definitely reviewing as part of the site plan process. And maybe Nadia or Alexander can provide a little more context on how the site design was developed.
Alexander, did you want to say anything, or do you want me to jump in? Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Alexander.
Wow, technology.
Sometimes it doesn't work well.
Yeah, first I just apologize coming in late for whatever reason. I just set my timing for 7 p.m. That's just so wonderful of me. So just to answer the question, I think just keeping what I'll let Nadia, you would just shed a bit more light on that. But particularly, we think that yes, there's some limitations to we put in the access at both either at Cope or Bobolink, and seeing that embankment has minor traffic, we definitely want to have an access route for our residents that actually is easy to feed off traffic to the arterial road. So I think that just in keeping with the density of traffic coming through and respecting what the city guidelines are, I think that that's what we actually arrived in for the design of the site plan.
Sam, can you bring up the site plan map? I think that might be helpful as we go through some of this Q&A. I wanted to ask, just for clarity, what sidewalks on embankment? Are there sidewalks on both sides of embankment or on one or the other? What's the current plan for Embankment Street?
Sorry, so maybe, Sam, could you maybe zoom into a section of the landscape plan? or I don't know if we can do it on our own screens, but maybe it might be. Helpful, yeah. Okay, so Embankment Street. Okay, there we go. So first of all, there is a sidewalk on what I believe is Cope Drive on the south side. Embankment Street, sorry, technology is not working in my favor either. Embankment Street. So sorry, Councillor Gower, are you asking if there are sidewalks right now?
Well, what's the plan? Because it's not clear, not really clear from this drawing if there's actually a sidewalk on the west side of Embankment Street.
The west side of Embankment Street.
Sorry, I'm sorry, the east side of Embankment Street. So on this map, the
east
top side of Embankment, like I can see the curb cuts there as each of the driveways come out, but it's not clear whether that's a sidewalk along the edge of the street on, or if that's, or what that would be. And maybe Colette would know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Let me double check. But Colette, do you know what is planned?
I don't know off the top of my head because that would have been done through the subdivision application. But I would imagine that there is, but I'll double check. I'll pull up the subdivision.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, because that's the question that came up a few times by email as well, in relation to the vehicle access to embankment. So if we can get some clarity on that before we're done today, I think that'd be helpful for the residents here.
Okay.
Nadia, did you have anything to add about access points?
So I'm not a transportation engineer, but I do know that, as Colette mentioned, there are, certain distances between, intersections, and there are these roundabouts. And so I think through the city's review and the city's transportation department review of our site plan, any comments on where the proposed accesses would come through from there. And so those comments would be received by our team, by our group, after the comment period, which is next Thursday, August 26th. So I think we've heard the comments, and we'll see what the city's transportation department says on our proposed design, and we'll have to go from there.
Okay. Jordan, do we have any other questions from residents?
So, Councillor, if I may just speak to the assets, the two assets going into the site, the sidewalk. But yes, those are sidewalks that we have on the first axis on the left, on the western side. There's an access point, and there's also a tactical, a tweezer towards the crossings as well. And if you look at the one on the right as well, towards the west, that's also a sidewalk as well. There's one that just has kind of a small space there just to provide for utilities, and the other is just a sidewalk. So yes, there's sidewalks actually connecting into the site.
Okay, so a couple of things. You've used an acronym, Alexander, that most people watching wouldn't know. TWSI, TWSI, that's a tactile walking surface indicator, which is for accessibility. It's the kind of the bronze metal grate that people might see at where sidewalks meet the road. But I'm still not clear. Like, so the shaded gray line that's on either side of kind of the driveways into this development is a sidewalk. But I think what I'm really looking for clarity on is along Embankment Street, are there sidewalks on one or both sides of Embankment Street? So I'm still not clear on that. That
goes beyond the limitations of the site. I don't know for sure. We'd have to look at the subdivision plans. But if you look at the just where our boundaries stop, the sidewalk seems to be extending out. That's something that we need to confirm from the subdivision plans.
Okay. Who owns the adjacent properties? They're listed, 152 to 159 and 160 to 166. Is that also Richcraft, or is it one of the other developers in this neighborhood?
That's Richcraft. So this site is specifically Richcraft rental. And so that's what I'm presiding over. And the all the properties is Richcraft homes.
Okay,
So
thank
they
you.
are free, right?
Okay. Jordan?
Yeah, we have a question about commercial space, and so this might be first for the applicant, and then maybe Glenn, you can expand upon that for the area at large. I suppose just why isn't there commercial considered for this site, and where will commercial be in the future for the Fernbank area?
Alexander and Nadia, do you want to start? And then I have a little bit of info I can share after.
Sure. So I think the community design plan that's been done for Fernbank has the land uses, and I'm not sure, maybe Samantha, if you could pull that slide up just for everybody. And so we'll just wait for that image to appear. Thank you. So I think that's great. So the mixed use, which is sort of that dark, to me it looks brown, but to the northeast where the big V, Village Green, you know, that's a mixed use area. You've got some neighborhood commercial also planned, which is the orange, slightly a bit off from this view. And so there have been, through the preparations of this community design plan, those uses for commercial have been contemplated and are shown in these locations. And in terms of, you know, this site has been designated for residential, so there isn't any commercial plan for this site. So maybe Councillor Gower, maybe I'll turn it back to you if you have some additional information on any other changes that are happening or locations for commercial.
Well, what I'll do, I'm going to share my screen because I've got a slightly different view of the Fernbank Community Design Plan. Can you see that on the screen?
Yes.
A new map. Yep. Okay. So this is from the original community design plan dating back over a decade ago. It's hard to describe this color, but let's say this rusty colored red of mixed use. There is definitely commercial planned along the north part of the Fernbank community along Hazeldean Road. And you can see there's this section here in the middle that's been designated as mixed use. So that mixed use allows builders to do retail or commercial. One of the challenges we are seeing across Stittsville and across the entire city of Ottawa is, although this mixed use land is intended to be a mix of retail and residential and other uses, there's an incredible demand on residential buildings right now, on homes, more so than retail. Retail has really struggled over the past few years, and it's taken more of a hit now due to COVID-19, due to ongoing online shopping and everything. So we're seeing a problem here where the mixed use zones are often getting developed as only housing and not with housing and shops and stores on the bottom. And right now, there's still land left in this area here around the V. That V stands for Village Green. So the Village Green is eventually going to be a gathering place, a central space in the Fernbank community. It's possible that some of this land south of the V could be developed as mixed use that includes retail and commercial. But we're not sure yet because it's up to the property owner to decide what they're going to develop. We recently, we went through a process around a plan of subdivision for a big area of land north of here. So between Abbott Street and Hazeldean Road. And we're including a section that, again, we're hopeful can be developed into mixed use or local commercial, maybe a coffee shop or a corner store. It's really important that we create these areas and zone these areas properly to encourage a retail mix, because I hear all the time from residents they'd like to have a store that they can walk to. Right now, all we have is the Walmart Plaza down in the southeast and the Hazeldean Road shops. But if you live anywhere else in this community, it's quite a distance to walk or to get to one of the local shops. So we're still hoping that we can have a developer who decides to build retail, local retail for local residents, either in this orange area here or just above Abbott Street along the future Robert Grant. So it's, I guess, a work in progress, and we'll see over the next 2 or 3 years what kind of applications come in. And we'll obviously be encouraging anyone who wants to build in this space to include some commercial. I should say the Lepine project on Robert Grant, it may have some commercial on the bottom, for example, a coffee shop or a yoga studio. They've done that in other apartment buildings that they have in Canada, for example. So there's a possibility for some smaller local retail there as well. Jordan, do we have other questions?
Yeah, here's a question. There's a few school sites that are proposed for pretty close to the site here. Did the traffic study include hypothetical traffic coming from the future schools?
Nadia or Alexander?
Hi, I can answer that. So the city didn't require a traffic impact study to be completed for the site because the proposed development is less than 90 units. So that's the trigger. So since we are below that 90 units, the city didn't require a traffic impact study.
So maybe a follow-up to Colette, how would the city be assessing this against the schools that are going to be built in this vicinity?
So so the city will just be assessing the site kind of based on the site design, because it's not anticipated that the number of trips will have any significant impact on the traffic in this area due to the size and the number of units and cars that are going to be kind of generated from the site. In terms of traffic to and from the school or school sites in the area, those would be accounted for in normal trips in and out of the site. And that's would be considered local traffic, I imagine, but I'm not a transportation engineer, of course. So, but I don't anticipate that based on the number of units, there would be a significant impact on traffic, which is why there was no transportation study required.
There's also quite a bit of background documentation in the Fernbank CDP around traffic and transportation planning. So again, based on the types of how would you put it? I guess based on the types of density and the types of use of schools versus retail, that's how they originally planned out the network of streets between Robert Grant and Cope and Abbott being the major streets. But I know it's something that I want to make sure we have a clear understanding of as we're evaluating this one, the mix of residential traffic and school buses, and OC Transpo, I believe, is going to be using Cope Drive as well. So understanding all the interrelated impacts from traffic on this site. Jordan?
Yeah, here's a question. Will there be any fences around or in the property?
Nadia or Alex?
Yes.
Yeah, I can
so
answer it. Sorry,
ahead,
Nadia, you want to go?
go ahead.
Yeah, so I suppose if I heard the question properly, would there be fences in or around the property, correct?
The question is just about fences, if they're going to be around the property or around the buildings or between
so-
the other adjacent properties.
So if if we can bring up the site plan itself, sorry, a landscape plan, we would be having something of a fence running, on the southern side portion of the site, just blocking against the freeholds that Richcraft would be in that area. So we'll be expecting, that's the only area we'll be expecting fence. There would also be decorative fence that would be in and around the site just to increase the aesthetics of the site. And also we do have an entrance gate feature that would have also some decorative fence as well. But there's a wooden fence that's going on the southern portion of the site, and then there's going to be decorative fence in and around different parts of the site.
So Jordan, I know Jordan and I are messaging behind the scenes. We have Raja who'd like to make a comment. So Raja, I'm going to allow you to talk. You're going to see or get a notification to unmute. So when you're ready, you can share your comment or question with the panel.
Sure. Thanks for the time, Mr. Glenn. So when I booked my lot number is 165, which is right behind the proposed building. So when I purchased from Claridge, so I heard that I've asked very explicitly that what kind of building is going to come up behind my backyard, and the answer was it's going to be like 2 to 3 story building that's going to be with Richcraft, and all of the sudden, what is the need for 4-story building to be built around that area? And shouldn't have to be considered even before being this making this buildings or making this plan ahead of the time.
Okay, so you're saying when you bought your home, you were told it would most likely be a 2 to 3 story buildings near you, and now you're seeing four stories and wondering why the change, and why did this change happen, and how come you were told something different when you purchased? So Alexander, do you want to answer that, or someone from the team?
I'm not particularly sure how the mode of information was passed across. I think that would be at a point of the your APS, but we have always identified this area for us to have anywhere between 3 to 4, which is our standard typical units that we build for our rental. So we identified this lot, this site, this subject site as a rental a while back. And for our rentals, not just here as well, we have rentals across Canada and also in Orleans as well. And we do have for our terrace flats standard architectural designs. And for these particular units, they've always been 4 units. So I'm not really sure how that information got passed across. If I'm not sure if it would be from Richcraft, but my understanding has always been that it's anywhere within 3 to 4 units, stories, 4 units.
Okay, so this brings to a question like who can be accountable for what? So imagine you like someone is buying with something in mind, and if suddenly all of the things are changed around it, and what is the decision is going to be? So
you did mention that you bought from Claridge, so I would suppose that information would be coming directly from Claridge. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yes.
So Claridge, though we do have mutual agreement here and there, Claridge is a different home building company than Richcraft, and so I would assume that if the question has always been that what sort of building would be there, it has to be something bona fide directly from Richcraft. So I'm not sure where Claridge got the information that this was going to be 2 to 3, but what Claridge builds in terms of their rental units, if they do, and Richcraft is quite different. So I do apologize, on behalf if they actually pass that information across, but I think the normal due process would be that Claridge should reach out to us and then we should provide some information, but I don't think that happened in this case.
Raja, if I can acknowledge, you've expressed something that's a concern of mine, is that we often hear from residents and they've received not necessarily incorrect information from builders in the sales center, but sometimes incomplete or not the most up-to-date information. Colette mentioned earlier in the call here that the R4 zoning does allow for this type of building. But I can totally understand if you're someone who's buying a new home, unless you ask very specifically, and even if you do ask, sometimes the salespeople in the developer, the builder sales rooms don't have the training or the broader knowledge of what is planned in the overall neighborhood. There is a good resource at the city. They're called Development Information Officers, DIO. And I try to mention this often on these calls that their job is to basically help residents interpret aspects of zoning and community planning so that they have as much independent information as possible when they're purchasing a new home, or if you're looking at making an addition or a change to your home. It's a really good resource. So you can call 311 and speak with the Development Information Officer. Now, I realize you've purchased your home and you've already been told one thing and now you're hearing something different. So, but it is something that happens more often than it should. And we're looking for ways to address that through better training and better information and disclosure to homeowners as we go forward. Because I do think people deserve to have as accurate a picture as possible when they're purchasing a property. It's obviously a very important purchase for families.
Yeah, I should have talked to them. I should have talked to them before I made a decision. Anyhow, and one more thing is like the driveway for the whole apartment, right? Couldn't be from all like any other directions. It should, because Alexander was mentioning that the embankment street is going to be less crowded. I don't think so. I just been there to visit a couple of times, and I noted from all other streets, they are like interior streets, they are accessing through the embankment streets. I noted it. So it means that it's going to be crowded more for sure. That's the point I wanted to make it. And if you are giving access for the whole apartments with these two from the embankment street, for sure it is going to add more traffic, and it's going to make the people who are living in embankment street is going to be a kind of nightmare. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you, Raja, for your comments. I'm just going to go quickly to some comments that were, or questions that were emailed earlier by Tom. Question about park space. How will, well, his question is, with the higher density development, like stacked townhomes, does this mean there will be bigger or more park space that is created for the public? I'm not sure, Colette, if maybe you could give an overview of how park dedication works. That might be a good way to answer that one.
Okay, so in this case, I think we're going to probably be going down the cash in lieu of parkland route, just because of the limitations in available land on this particular site. But in the greater community, through that Fernbank community design plan, there were spaces that were identified for parkland and things like that. So what we do typically is the parks planner will assess the site based on if there's an ability really to provide a significant piece of land that could actually be a functional park site. And in situations where that's not possible, we ask the applicant to pay cash in lieu of that parkland. So, and then that money is paid at the time of the registration of the site plan. And I believe that it's allocated to both the ward park budget as well as the city park budget. So this site and the developer will be contributing to the overall park budget for the city and the ward to contribute to parks already in the area as well as throughout the city. But where we can't have a functional park dedicated to the site, we pursue that money instead. So that's probably the route we'll be going in this application.
Yeah, and the parks in Fernbank are progressing fairly closely to what we see on this plan. I think the one big missing piece on this plan is you don't see Shea Woods here, which is very close to the site. And there may be some of those funds that end up being used to purchase the Shea Woods land. But for the most part, the parks are being built as planned with a few tweaks here and there. The other question that Tom had was, will there be any additional bike paths, or how have you considered bike access for this project? Alexander or Nadia?
I can just speak to that. I think that from our end, we are looking to, we do have bike do have in the amenity building itself, we do have a bike storage unit there, and we also do have additional bike storages that we would have around the site. But for bike access, the short answer is no. We definitely are looking to just go on the specific of the site itself. But for bike access, we don't think we even have the sort of space that one would require for bike access. So the short answer is no, but we do also try to encourage within the development for the residents as well. You know, if they do have bikes, then yes, we'll have them stored properly.
Okay, thank you. There's a few participants who have their hand up, so I'll go first to Mahesh. Mahesh, welcome.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my questions are, the first one is that you guys did not answer whether there will be a walkway on the embankment street, right? Sidewalks on the embankment street. Okay, that is a big question for me, because when I brought the house, they said that my lot, by the way, my lot is 152, okay, which is on the side of the street which gets into the into those condos. Okay, I just if there is a sidewalk on my in front of my home, then it will be a big mess, because on one side I have a path that goes to the condo. On the in front of my house I have a sidewalk, so there will be traffic on the side and also in front of my home, right? It is as good as living in a marketplace, right? I took my house, when I brought my house, it was said that there is no sidewalk, so I purchased this house. Okay, that is one question that I have. Okay, the second question I had is the sales representative in the Richcraft told me that there will be a city provided fencing around the single home, behind the single homes, right? So I just wanted to know if you guys are planning to do a fencing, and what kind of fencing it is. Is it a wooden fencing or concrete fencing? And so Alexander was telling that there will be a fancy fencing or something like that, decorative fencing, sorry. So I wanted to know, will those be around these single homes, or it is around the condos itself?
Okay,
let's
start with the fencing question and then go to the sidewalk question. So fencing question first, what's the type or design of fencing?
So yes, I can speak to that. So for the units, the limits of the units from, I think, for freehold, there would be a fencing that we are proposing there, and that would be a wooden fence. And just because of privacy, I'm not, sure, because this doesn't about the city property. I don't think that there'll be a city fence going running across that line. But yes, the type of fence would be a wooden fence, and that would be something that Richcraft will be installing ourselves.
So will that fencing also cover the side of the home, which is at the corners, or it is only in the back?
That's something that I would have to look at and get back. I'm not sure right now, but I do know that at the back there would be fencing going across. But I would assume that yes, that's on the side as well. There may be a fencing going through as well.
So Mahesh, if you send me an email, I'll get Richcraft or our planner Colette to give you a specific answer about the fencing that be adjacent to your property, so we can look at that specifically and give you some more clarity on that one.
Okay, sure.
And then your other question about sidewalks, just the confirmation of the embankment sidewalk situation.
Yeah, so there is no planned sidewalk along the north side of Embankment Street. It's just a curb, it appears. I can share my screen. I have the subdivision landscape plan if people would like to see that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so here it is. So I think you said yours is lot 152. So it's
yes, that
right here. So as you can see, there's no sidewalk here. So the only sidewalks will be in this location where my cursor is, and then along Coke Drive in this area.
So sorry, can you please repeat? It took some time to load.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so your lot is right here, 152.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no sidewalk here. So as you can see, the sidewalks are kind of denoted by this this like little speckle. So it's just trees along this side of the embankment.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the sidewalks are on the opposite side of my home.
There's no sidewalk in front of your home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And on the side of my home, on the side, is there any sidewalk on the side of my home? On the side.
Well, there's no city sidewalk, and I think there was perhaps a pathway, but that's not in the city right of way, so it wouldn't be a city sidewalk. It would be a path that is internal to the site.
Okay, and just one question that I have: will the space between my home and the road that goes on the side of my home, will the space? I don't know. It is maybe 14 feet or I don't know. Like, is it a good space to be with, or is it a very short space? Because I keep hearing the sound of the traffic, right? So I just wanted to make sure that it is sufficient space. Because at the corner of any house, like, will they have a sufficient space, right? I just wanted to know the 14 feet will be sufficient for this house.
So the applicant will be required to provide an access that meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw. So it will be a sufficient space, and these accesses appear to be planned as through the subdivision. They were obviously excluded as homes. They're about the size of a lot, most likely to serve this piece of land. So they've probably been planned as accesses from the time of the subdivision to serve this land. So, and once again, that's something, yeah.
My question is the access road, from the access road to my home. Okay, the green space that they have is around 14 feet or something like that. Okay, will it be sufficient?
Are you referring to just kind of this area right here? Like
not fully that. I am talking about the space between my home and the road, the side road. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe Sam can pull up the landscape plan again, then we can look at it. But they have to meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw in terms of landscape buffers and things like that. And so that's something we'll be reviewing through there's no measurement on this plan right now, but I imagine.
I'm talking about the green space on 152 between the side and that green space, the width of that green space. Yeah, the width will be sufficient?
That's something that we'll look at through the development review process. Maybe Nadia or Sam can identify how big that space is, but as part of the zoning bylaw requirements, they are required to provide a certain amount of what's the word? Like to border the site and the parking lot.
The landscape buffer.
The landscape buffer, yes. They're required to provide a landscape buffer. So what we look for is that it meets the zoning bylaw requirements, and that's something we'll review through the site plan review process. And if it doesn't, we'll ask them to meet the bylaw. And if they can't meet it, then they'll have to get relief from the bylaw through a separate process. So.
Yeah, so just to confirm, that green space is a proposed landscape buffer, and then there's the driveway aisle that is the access point that was also shown on the plan of subdivision as one of the accesses into the site.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mahesh. And I think if you can get in touch with me by email, because I'd like to set up a call with you offline to go over some of the concerns, because obviously where your home is located, where your lot is located, I think there is an impact. So I want to make sure you've got all the information that you need, and make sure that our planning staff understands the concerns as well. So if you could send me an email, we'll follow up separately offline. Thank
Yeah,
you for
can you
your-
please, can you please leave me your email ID on the comments section?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. It's glenn.gower@ottawa.ca. We're going into a bit of overtime, but I want to make sure we get to all the people with their hands up, at least here. We have Sankar next. Sankar, are you with us?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. My question is a follow-up for the traffic. So as Nadia said, you need like more than 90 units to conduct the traffic study, right? But I'm just looking like it's totally 84 units, and you guys must consider the units in Embankment Street as well, which will be more than 100 units in that area.
So I can defer to Colette for additional requirements based on the city, but when there's a proposed development and the proposed number of units, so for residential, if you're under 90 residential units, the city does not require a traffic impact study. So this proposed development is 84 units. So the city did not require a traffic impact study. So Colette, I don't know if you want to add anything else, but the city has a process for determining when and what those triggers are, or what are the thresholds for when a traffic study is required.
Yeah, so the city, we have a screening process to identify which proposed developments require traffic studies. And this particular site, although there are additional homes along Embankment, we're reviewing the proposed development on this site and its impact on neighboring areas and traffic. So we were looking specifically at the number of units that are being added to this area as a result of this development. So the houses on Embankment Street would have been assessed through a traffic study done through the subdivision process. So we are just looking at the 84 units, and it is a trigger. And if they were to pass that trigger, they would have required a traffic study, but in this case, they did not.
All right.
To be clear, Colette, I just want to make sure people understand, that doesn't mean traffic isn't being considered, or the effect,
No.
or the road design, or the pathway inside. It just means that a more comprehensive traffic study wasn't required because of the size of this particular application.
Yeah, so this particular application, there's been larger planning exercises done for this area, which considered, we saw the Fernbank Community Design Plan, which foresaw this land as being medium density. So the size of the roads and all that was considered at that time, but this specific site is it's in line with that planning. And it's, for example, if they were proposing something much bigger, we would have obviously needed them to do a traffic study to prove that it could be done. But in this case, because it's below that 90 unit trigger, it's not required, because we don't foresee there being a huge impact as a result of the development that needs to be addressed on traffic specifically.
Sankar, do you have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Harry, I'm going to allow to talk. Harry, are you with us?
Yes. Thanks, Councillor, for giving me the opportunity here. I just want one clarification and one concern. Is this a Fernbank community or Westwood community we are talking about?
Yes, we've been using different names. So this is part of the Westwood community that is part of the bigger Fernbank community. So Westwood is the smallest unit here, Fernbank being the overall neighborhood in the Fernbank Community Design Plan within the ward of Stittsville.
Okay. Thank you for clarification. And the other thing is, my concern is, of course, the traffic. So I just want to raise my voice regarding the traffic here.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pankaj is next. Pankaj, are you with us? I think you're
Yes,
on.
hi.
Oh, there you are. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Okay, so one thing I want to say, when I bought this house last year, actually, my lot number is 159. And just next to my house, there is an entrance for the apartment. And on that time, they said there will be one entrance from the Coop Drive and one entrance from the another side of the road. So I was thinking, yeah, that should be okay because on this road, the traffic will be very less. But now I can see we have just only two entrances and both entrances on the Embankment Street, right? So traffic is going to be very high because like it's 84 apartment, right? And as I heard, right, this project should not require the traffic checking because they are saying it's less than 90 apartment, right? So 84 and 90, like there's no very big difference. So I think will be good, like if we do the traffic checking, like maybe the traffic study for this building.
Okay, noted. It's something I'm going to follow up separately with Colette and discuss what the options are there in terms of the traffic study, because it's obviously clear from the questions and comments, there's a lot of concern about that. So Colette, we'll look into that.
Thing is, when we bought this house though, and they were not sure, like for next to my house, it's going to be road and it's going to be house from Richcraft because this land, the land is basically, I think, from the Richcraft. So I bought Tamarack house. They were saying they're not sure, but they were saying maybe it will be a private road. So if it is a private road, then Tamarack should give us a brick on the side. So that because brick will reduce the noise level from the outside, right? But they are not giving us a brick on the side. They're just giving the vinyl. And I asked and I sent them email that it's a road and it's going to be heavy traffic because we just have a 2 entrance. They said, no, it's a private road. So as per the city rule, if it is a private road, then we cannot provide the bricks. So I don't know, like, where should I go? Because like, if we don't have a brick, then it's going to be very noisy, right?
Yeah, could someone from the Richcraft or WSP just clarify in terms of a private road and what that means in terms of requirement?
Yeah, because like private road means I think it's not maybe like maintained by the city. It's going to be maintained by the like Richcraft or maybe like someone else, right, privately. But like for us, like road is they are gonna use for traffic, right? Vehicle is gonna come and out, right? But noise is same. If it is private, it doesn't matter, right? It's just only for like who is gonna maintain, right?
Oh yeah, it's a really good question. So what does that mean? A private road versus a public road? What does that mean in terms of
if it's private, then it's gonna be like maintained by someone like privately. If it is by city, then city is gonna clean the snow and they're gonna maintain the road. If it is something wrong with the road, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's Nadia, can you answer that one about the private road and what that means in terms of maintenance and
Yes.
Responsibilities?
Yes, happy to, Councillor. So a private road, Pankaj, you're right, is it's not a city road. It is privately owned, and there would be, excuse me, the snow maintenance clearing would be maintained by a private company. That is pretty typical in these types of developments where a developer has a site with several buildings and there's a private access road or driveway into the site that is then maintained by a private contractor.
Yeah.
So that is a difference between a private and a municipal road in terms of from a maintenance and ownership perspective. So I don't know, Pankaj, if that answers your question or.
My question is actually if it is private or like it's the public road, but builder should provide us a brick right on the side. Because as per the city rule, if my house is on the corner road, right, then builder should use the brick on the side wall, right, of the house.
So I can't comment on the building materials, and if you, I don't know of any requirements for brick material on private roads. And I understood that you bought your property from Tamarack, so I'm not aware of any city requirements of building materials.
Because I had
side of a house.
I have currently one house. So when I was searching for a house, new house, then they were saying if it is corner lot, then they should provide the brick, because like noise level and all on the road is high. So that's why like brick is there always on the corner lot. But when I asked for same question for my house, they said it's we have a private road. We will not consider as a corner road. So I don't know like what is the difference between private and the public road, right?
So from a building materials, I can't answer that. Maybe Colette, you might have some
Yeah.
details, but
So-
I don't.
So this is in terms of, technicalities and things like that. This is not a private road. It's an access to the parking lot that is going to be used by the residents of the proposed development.
Yeah.
So your lot is considered a through lot. It's not considered a corner lot under the zoning definitions. So I'm not sure about the noise requirements either. I don't believe that the city has requirements for brick along corner lots, but sometimes we do require noise walls if there's significant noise being generated by a road. Or we require the developer to install air conditioning units in the case that people can't open their windows to like let in air. So we require, and they can't charge additional costs, but that's something that's assessed through noise studies. And in the case of your home, it would have been done through the subdivision process. And it's at this point, it's, I think, something you should reach out to your developer about, because it's not really in the scope of this application.
Okay. So one more question. So the road, the private road, like, is it sufficient as per the city of Ottawa rule? Like, because there's only 2 entrances, right? So it's going to be like 84 apartments and definitely visitor parking as well, right? So it's going to be like very big traffic on these 2 roads. And I think these 2 roads are very small as comparison to like any another road. Like if you compare with the Embankment Street, right? And this private road, it's very, very small.
Well,
Even they don't have anything like green space on the side.
Well, just to kind of reiterate what I was saying, it is not a private road. It is an access way. So we don't anticipate there's going to be through traffic in and out constant throughout the site. It's people coming in, parking, and people leaving. So it has a different function than a road itself.
Okay.
But that will obviously be assessed through the development review process, and they'll be required to meet the aisle or the driveway width requirements that are outlined in the zoning bylaw. They'll be required to meet the landscape buffer requirements that are in the zoning bylaw. And until such a time that they are, like, the city will not provide approval for the site. So that's something we'll review, and we'll go back and forth as much as needed to achieve a result that everyone is happy with.
So one last question, like, is there any concern that why we don't have an entrance from the Coop Drive for this society?
Well, we haven't received comments back from our transportation engineers yet, so that's something that they'll be commenting on. But just from previous experience in other situations, there's often concerns about adding accesses too close to intersections, because it can result in backing up traffic onto the road, and especially roads that are arterial and have higher traffic levels than perhaps lower roads. It can create backup in the system. So that's something they'll be looking at and confirming through their review, but that would
Okay,
be...
I can understand. I think on the Coop Drive, we have a very big, I think, gap between the circle and like for this entrance. Like there's, I think, circle is very far, right?
Yeah, and that's something that we will confirm. The traffic engineering team will confirm through their review. And if it's deemed that another entrance, I'm not saying it's going to be, but if it were determined that, then we would be providing that as a comment for the applicant to address in their next submission.
So is this application already passed, or like it's under?
No.
Okay.
So this application is right at the beginning. So yeah, we're just in the initial circulation period right now. So usually the bulk of comments that come up or concerns that come up in the review process that we'll be working through come up through this circulation. So we're just waiting to hear back from all the different disciplines like transportation, engineering, all that. And then we'll provide a consolidated list of the bulk of comments to the applicant to address.
Okay, and we will get update from email, right?
So we typically don't provide the comments we provide to the applicant to the public because they're for the applicant. But we will provide notification to anyone who provides comments or is in attendance to this meeting, a notification that a resubmission has been given. And at that time, you'll be able to see the changes that have been made in response to comments.
Okay.
And Pankaj, I'll be sharing updates as well through my website and email newsletter when there's major updates to this particular application. I do want to move on to because we do have a few more questions that I want to make sure we have time for. I would add one thing that I'm looking for as a counselor, and it's one thing to have different studies and opinions, but I'm going to be looking for examples where we have, say, roughly 80 to 100 townhomes that have one or two access points onto a street, and try to find those that exist in Stittsville or Canada or Barrhaven, and how are those functioning? What's the actual traffic volume? What are the issues there? So that's one of the ways that I will consider it. I know there is another recent application that was approved about a year ago, Hazeldean Crossings at Hazeldean Road. It has, I believe, 84 townhomes with one access. So it's a different type of road though. It's so it's not exactly the same, but we'll look for comparable examples in the community that we can evaluate just to see what's the same, what's different, what the issues might be.
Yeah, no, I understand. So the only difference is here, so when we purchased our house, right, we got some different information that there is going to be two different entrances and they're going to be ground plus 2-story building. But now it's totally different. So that's why actually we have a more, I think, questions right now for this project.
Yeah, well, they do have, it's completely in a property owner's right. They don't have anything approved there right now on this site. So they are thinking of something that was never approved or put forward. So they are within their right, but that's why, we're having this call today to make sure we understand it.
Yeah.
To raise any issues or concerns. So I have Raj who's on the line. Raj?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, most of my concerns were addressed, and I appreciate you guys taking the time and addressing our concerns. Just quickly a highlight on some of the points which are raised by Shankar, Pankaj. Like the traffic is one of the major concerns. Like the reason why I'm just trying to highlight this once again is to not only to generically address on the traffic, but also you guys know that this is going to create a lot of pollution as well, right? Like be it noise, be it air pollution. As much as we would love to see more families, living in our community, but it's going to create a lot of chaos, in the peak hours, like while commuting to work, while commuting to in the evening hours, let's say, like there's also another development very close by the high school. So there are going to be a lot of kids coming through. So this is also a safety concern, for the families, not just for us, even for the families, which is going to be proposed in the future, right? That's one of the things which we wanted to bring it up. Also, the road width is something which, as one of the person mentioned, that the road engineers will take a look at it. The size of the road is going to be like a one-way or a two-way in both ways. So that needs to be considered as well, like how the traffic rules going to be adhered to. Like, is there going to be a signal? Is there going to be a stop sign? Is there going to be access to the roundabout? Because right now I'm seeing a lot of misunderstandings in the roundabouts which are happening, even with less number of families right now. But going forward, if there are going to be like 84 more, let's say, cars on an average, there's going to be a lot of let's say miscommunication or misunderstanding, which could lead to accidents, right? Danger zones created. So that is something which I would really appreciate if you guys can consider as well. But yeah, but thanks a lot for you guys taking this time. As our counselor mentioned, there is one on the Hazeldean Road which has like close to 84 townhomes, like this is a huge building. But the advantage to that building is like they are accessible to the main road of it. Like here, it's a different story. They need to come outside or like go out in through the embankment street, which is like pretty much a community. Over there, it's like a more like a main road, it's a big road where they can just go in or come out. So it's not going to create a lot of chaos within the community itself, right? So that's one of the things. But I would really appreciate if the councillor could check with other buildings or constructions, like how they have planned it, and like how we could actually leverage those let's say advantages or disadvantages to challenge and address it. That's pretty much it. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Raj, for your comments. Appreciate that. Our next on our list is Dhananjaya. Am I pronouncing that right?
Oh yeah. Good evening, Glenn. Good evening,
Hi.
everyone. Hi. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. I did ask 2 questions. The one question is concerned with the traffic which is going to come into the Robert Grant and the Bobolink Ridge. So I already see a lot of trouble in crossing the road, being a pedestrian, or even to drive through the roundabout. So like again, getting 84 buildings will make that worse. And as my friend said, so it probably leads into an accident and whatnot. That is the one concern. And the to add into that, people ask to access the same pathway to go into the Trans-Canada Trail. That will again add up the big problem. This is the one question. My other question is, as this proposal considers what is being planned or proposed into the other side of the Bobolink and the Robert Grant, like we have 2 empty places on the other side, right? So is that considers that one?
Yeah, Nadia or Alexander, do you want to take a first go at that one?
Sure. So on the north side of Bobolink Ridge, there's residential development that would occur. And on the other side of Robert Grant, I'm less familiar with. I'm not sure, Colette, if you know if there's anything happening on the other side of Robert Grant.
Just from looking at some aerial photos, it looks like there's some apartment buildings on the other side of Robert Grant.
Yeah, maybe I'd be the best answer because I'm in this neighborhood probably more often than anyone. But yeah, let's see. North of this site, there's an application for some townhomes, which I believe is from Claridge, similar to the proposal that's here. East of Robert Grant, there are a number of low-rise apartments, 3 stories that are currently under construction or already built. To the south of this site, there's the high school site. To the west of this site, there are some existing and homes under construction, townhomes, singles, a variety of different sizes. And then I guess if you look northeast diagonally, there's a big empty field now. We do not have any applications for that space currently. In the north end of that field, there's a apartment building from Lepine that's currently going through an approval stage, but the rest of that land is right now quite a bit of open space, and we do not have any proposals that are active right now. If you look at the broader Fernbank community, I had that map up earlier, there's still a lot more homes, schools, businesses, quite a bit of development still to come. I'm going to take a rough guess or estimate. If we look at the total plan for the Fernbank area, I would think we're only about a third through in terms of the number of homes that are being constructed. That's just a rough guess on my part, but there's still quite a bit of home building and other types of building that's still to come in the Fernbank area.
Yeah, but this has to consider those things, and that will add up into the traffic coming into the roundabout.
Oh, there is. I totally understand, and this is a master plan community that goes back 10 years. So that's why I wanted to make that point that there's still quite a bit of development to come. So yes, there are certainly, if this is approved, there'd be 84 townhomes, but overall, there are new schools, there are new homes, there are hundreds of new dwellings that will be built over the next few years. So a lot of that has been taken into consideration in terms of the overall road design, but I think what we need to focus on for this one is the detail. If we do have 84 stacked townhomes, what does that mean immediately for embankment? Are there additional accesses needed? Are there additional safety measures? Is there traffic calming? What can we do to make sure that the impact of this is understood and mitigated for the residents who are living on Embankment and Cope and Bobolink and the surrounding streets?
As I said, like I already see a problem of just like trying to cross the road around in that roundabout, or probably driving through that roundabout. Like, so again, adding this 84 units and the other things coming up in the future on the other sides, so that will make the things worse.
Yes, understood. Did you have any other questions, Dan and Jaya?
Yeah, I did ask about the traffic problem happening into the roundabout of Bobolink and the Robert Grant.
The traffic impact, you mean from having too much traffic or too many cars using the roundabout?
Yes, too much traffic, probably either with the pedestrians or with the cars.
So let me offer you this, because I don't think anyone here can answer that right now, but if you could email me, glenn.gower@ottawa.ca, I'll get one of the city's traffic engineers just to give us an idea of the capacity of the roundabouts on Robert Grant. Robert Grant is an arterial road, and Cope and Bobolink, I believe, are collectors or minor collectors. So there'd be a minimum design standard in terms of they'd have to handle a very significant amount of traffic. And I'll check to see if we have, first of all, what amount of traffic they can reasonably handle, and also what they're handling right now if we have any recent traffic counts. The longer term plan for Robert Grant is to have bus rapid transit lanes along both sides of Robert Grant, and eventually Robert Grant could be widened to 4 lanes as well, although that's quite a ways off. But if you look at how wide the Robert Grant corridor is with the roadway and the boulevards and the bike lanes and the sidewalks, it's a very, very wide width, and that's to accommodate potential future expansion if it's needed, depending on how people's driving patterns and community patterns evolve over the next few decades.
Yeah, thanks for giving me a chance.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thanks for joining us. So we have one more resident with the hand up, James. So we're going to go to you, James, and then Jordan has a couple other quick questions that were sent in by text, and then we'll wrap it up tonight. So James, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was a little bit delayed in joining you, and maybe the question was already answered. When I look at the top view of the site, and I look at the pictures of the site, and I do the calculations of each of the units, it looks like 3 stories, but in the application it says 4 stories. Could you just clarify that, please?
Nadia or Alexander?
Yes. Good evening, James. So it is 4 stories are proposed for the stacked townhouse development.
I see, though, from the pictures you show on your billboards that it's a 3-story from the front. Right?
Okay, so from this image here. 1, 2.
And also, if you take into account when you look from the top of each group of housing, there are 4 units per house, and you say 12 units. So it looks more like three floors.
It is 3
that.
stories. That's correct. It is 3 stories.
It's
3 stories.
That's correct. It's 3 stories.
Okay, very, very good. And I just have one other question, and that's again, I think it's been raised about the roundabout, especially the one at the high school with all of, this will be additional traffic coming into that roundabout. And I noticed that very wisely, one of the exits and entrances for pedestrians at the high school leads directly into the roundabout at Cope and Robert Grant, which is a disaster waiting to happen. And if we increase the traffic flow, it'll just even make it more dangerous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, James. That's it for the people had hands up, but Jordan, there's a couple of questions we haven't answered yet. So let's go quickly to those before we wrap up.
Yeah, we have 17 visitor parking spaces in the site plan. President wants to know if that's enough, and how are visitor parking spaces, how's the amount of that determined?
So the zoning bylaw requires 0.2 spaces, visitor spaces per dwelling unit. So based on the proposed 84 units, we are meeting the zoning bylaw requirement, and we are providing 17 visitor parking spaces.
And the other question was, will the entrances be lit? So what's the lighting plan for this area?
Alexander, do you maybe want to speak to that one?
Right, so we haven't gotten to the stage of having that designed yet, but that's something that we would be looking to do prior to our second or third submission. So we haven't, so I can't speak to what the lighting will look like, but I would just from from prior experience that the standard lighting that we put across the site, and from the buildings themselves, the fixtures themselves, to light posts across the site itself. So I can't say, for example, how far that's going to go until I actually see an actual design, and I can put that over for comments and review.
And if I could just jump in, the city does require that the site lighting be designed to minimize spillage onto neighboring properties, if that would be a concern. So the typical amount is like 0.5 FC, which I forget what that stands for, but so they'll have to design the site lighting to do that, and we will include a condition in the site plan agreement to ensure that the site is designed to that, and they need to get a certificate from a certified engineer to confirm that that is the case. So we'll be reviewing that as part of the site plan review process.
Okay, any other questions, Jordan?
No, that's it from my side.
Okay, because we are at our time, so it's just after 7:30 p.m. I want to really thank residents for the excellent comments and questions. This is probably more questions than we usually get for an application, and I hope you got some clarification, and I know there's a number of follow-ups that we've committed to as well to get some clarity to some of the answers, but I made some notes as we went along here, concerns about vehicle access and traffic safety from embankment, question about commercial space and commercial amenities in the neighborhood, the school zone traffic, the impact on the development here, size of the building and height, fencing, private road and what that means from a maintenance and design perspective, overall traffic capacity and parking, and a few others as well. So some very good questions and comments raised. I wanted to just share my screen really quickly and invite anyone who's on the call today or watching the video afterwards. This is my website. It's glenngower.ca. And a couple things I want to show you. First of all is this development tab. If you click here, what we'll see is a map loading up, and it shows all of the development applications in Stittsville. Some of these have already been approved. Some of them are older ones, and some of them are still active. But you'll see the map there, and then as you scroll down, you'll see details about any public meetings like this one and any new developments and information in the community. And the other thing is I have a weekly email newsletter. So please sign up to my weekly email newsletter if you aren't already a subscriber. We have over 5,000 people who receive the weekly email. And check out my Facebook and YouTube page as well. I do a weekly video update with information about the community. And we're also podcasting that now on Spotify and iTunes and other services. So there's so much going on in Stittsville, and these are all great ways to stay on top of what's happening. So thank you, Colette and Jeffrey from the city's planning department. And thank you, Nadia and Samantha from WSP and Alexander from Richcraft. And thank you, of course, Jordan, for your help in moderating. If there's any questions we weren't able to answer or anything else you'd like clarified or comments to share, please email me at glenn.gower@ottawa.ca, and I'll do my best to get you that information. Hope you all have a great night, and thanks again for joining us. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Right. Bye-bye.
Good night.